welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for July. And as Jack Nicholson's character in The Batman said, commence au festival. Because today I don't want you to be kind of middle line. It's, we're approaching Friday, so everybody should be a bit more happier. So I want to get rid of the gloom. I want you to be cheery. I want you to enjoy this festival. And what a festival lineup have we got? Because if you're going to be talking festival, there's only one festival we can talk about, and that is the Gloomhaven Festival. And there's only one person we can bring on to talk about the festival. And this is like the second episode. This is like the second time, so he's officially a repeat offender from Cephala Fair. I've got Ross Thompson. Yay!
What's up?
How you doing? You good?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's full campaign mode, right? So you're getting somebody who's like crispy off 3 weeks of campaign with 6 days still to go, right? So we never a dull moment here.
We kind of spoken about let's do something at the beginning, but I know you've got people who you speak to who are far more interesting than me and far more popular than me.
Oh, and I haven't even been doing any front-facing stuff. I've had Isaac go on everything, man.
Really?
So, yeah, no one wants to hear from me for Gloomhaven. They want to hear from Isaac. They want to hear from the design team. That's the whole point of this show, right? So it's good.
So, like when we first last time we spoke, there was you were kind of doing the bridging bit between kind of Steamforge, and I think Cephala Fair wasn't. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was kind of like all. It was official. You kind of moved over, but
I think so, yeah.
But now that you're right in the middle of it. Because it's almost like, Isaac, did you like design this campaign to kind of like give me a full kind of baptism of fire? Is it a huge difference from, say, the crowdfunding you were doing it like you'd done it kind of like Steamforge? Is it a big departure?
So at a certain point, all crowdfunding is the same, right? Like here's a product, here's a thing, you back it, you're not going to get it till whenever, right? Yeah. This campaign is infinitely different from anything I've worked on in like the 12 years I've been doing crowdfunding.
Okay.
And what's neat about it, there's a couple things that are really neat about it, right? One is that the Gloomhaven audience is a excitable, awesome, passionate fan base, right? So like they know what Gloomhaven is. They've played it. They're deep in that. They've been Jaws the Lion. They've followed Isaac for forever. Right, they all have Frosthaven right now, and they're all getting their teeth deep into that, right? So they want to know what's next.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, we know that wherever we go, they'll be on board, and they want to be a part of that because they want to be a part of the Gloomhaven journey with Isaac, right? So that was a cool base to start from, and being able to essentially be like, okay, cool, we've got all these things we want to do. We want to do second edition. We want to do the role-playing game.
Yeah.
We want to do the miniatures. We want to do Frosthaven second printing. We want to do Buttons and Bugs, which we got announced, right? And then want to add in all these apps and accessories and things and all of that. And so Isaac's goal when he brought me on back in January was to be like, hey, I want to have this all in one campaign.
Wow.
Which I was like, okay, that's a thing. Yeah. Like I don't know if I would have done that originally. Even I looking at it now, I'm so glad we did it. It's awesome, right? But it's one of those things where I was like, okay, that's new. And he's like, yep, I want to do things that are new and ambitious, and we did. So essentially, it was putting together that campaign and how do we make it that level of this. And so one of the how the festival name came around was trying to figure out how do you name something in a campaign that isn't the one product, because normally if you're funding for a board game, it's just the name of it, right? And all of that. And we're like, well, we couldn't call it Gloomhaven Second Edition Role Playing Game Miniatures Campaign because on backer kit, right? Because so that's just a mouthful and all of that. So yeah, the festival idea really kind of came around, which then really helped the thematic side of stuff, right? Because the Frosthaven campaign they had was in the desolate region of Frosthaven, and the campaign page itself was icy and this, and we were all during quarantine and everything there, so it could totally fit that, like, oh, we're all isolated and this stuff, and there hadn't been anything new, so people were excited to dive deep on that. And so coming into this one, it was cool. Let's celebrate Gloomhaven, right? We're going to be in the city. Let's have banners. Let's have confetti. Let's have this stuff. Let's have all of this. And then a big thing Isaac really wanted was the Gloomhaven TV thing, right? And everything there. And so he was like, I want TV. And I'm like, great, let's put it together.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some things I don't want to go like deep on that, but things change on Twitch, things change on YouTube. Backer Kit wanted to do all these things. So we had to figure out the best way to have that happen. And so it's really cool that we're able to showcase all of our stuff live on the Backer Kit page, which is really neat. Like that isn't a thing that Kickstarter does or any other crowdfunding platform does. So being able to have like right now, as we're recording, you know, we have one of our the video game partners on right now.
Yeah.
And they're showing off the trailer for the thing and doing all of that. And we've got, 200 viewers that are watching that live on Twitch and the Backer Kit page. That's pretty cool, and we've been able to do all this content. I think we've been at like, I think I did the count last week. It was like, 60 hours of stuff and or 60 different shows with like, X amount. It's been crazy, right? So, but it's been neat because we've been able to kind of keep it fresh because we have to showcase stuff for 2.0, for the role-playing game, for miniatures, for everything else.
Yeah.
And how do you keep it in a way that people want to come back each day, or at least give them something to do and do all that.
Yeah.
And so it's been an interesting way to, there's a lot of noise, that's for sure. Right. But it's like, how do you break it in a way? So we on our daily updates, that has character previews. It's got live stream updates. It's got puzzle breakdowns. It's got recaps. It's got these things, all this kind of stuff. And so
they're fairly bite-sized though, aren't they? Because I remember, I mean, anybody that's kind of backed kind of Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, any of those games, will notice that when Isaac has traditionally done like the Cephalofair newsletter that he writes, the boy pens. He likes to tell you everything that's kind of going on.
He does. It's great. Are
we approaching, or have we now crossed the threshold where Gloomhaven is kind of like a brand? Because you're talking to me like
100%.
Video games. I mean, everybody's talking about the video game and how it compares to the actual board game. You've now, you've got your various iterations of Gloomhaven. You've got your Jaws of the Lion, so you've got your intro kind of thing. And then you've got kind of like the RPG, which is a huge, big step into a big world as well. That's, to me, releasing a board game and marketing a board game is kind of like if you've got enough joie de vivre about you and enough things to differentiate you, you can find your audience and you can do quite well. Entering the tabletop RPG space, that's, even a big names can go there to kind of effectively kind of flounder and have difficulty. So is the RPG stuff, is that something that's still kind of getting worked on, looked at, tinkered with?
Oh, yeah. That's well, Isaac is he would say that he's probably like a role play gamer at heart, right? And so being able to do the role playing game has been a big passion project for him. And so being able to work with all the different people to bring all that on and make it a big team effort. But now that we have the core mechanics out and everything there's going to be so much more that we're going to be, fleshing out and kind of getting that ready, which would be, that's the joy of crowdfunding, right? It goes, hey, here's the game, here's what we're doing. And we've been able to show off a lot of really cool live plays, with a lot of different people and kind of show off how it's going to be using that Gloomhaven card combat system. But yeah, I mean, it's going to allow people to tell stories within the Gloomhaven universe that they wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
And it is a brand, right? And like, there's two questions there, right? You're like, is it a brand and is it the whole role-playing game thing? And I think what's neat that we're in a world where Warhammer dominates and D&D dominates
Yes.
and Pokemon dominates and everything else there, but there aren't a lot of really big board game brands that really stand out. Like Asmodee, of course, has like Ticket to Ride and Pandemic and everything else, but those are kind of self-contained within their own thing. And then, you play the game, you're done. Gloomhaven, people that have played Gloomhaven have dedicated like a year or two of their life to this brand.
Yes.
Right. And in the tabletop space, Critical Role is in a similar boat where people that are critters that actively watch that, every episode's like 4 hours long. So if you've watched, Vox Machina or whatever there, like in Mighty Nine, and now with the new stuff, you have a lot of your life invested in this story and this world and everything there. And I think with Gloomhaven, the base, like, it was number one on Board Game Geek for 6 years. Like, you don't do that without having something that's really good, right? So, and the video game, being able to be on Nintendo Direct the first week of the campaign was awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to go to consoles is going to be awesome. I can't wait to play Gloomhaven on Switch. Like, for me, that
I think it's made for it, isn't it? It's like, it reminds
100%.
me, it's like kind of like being able to play Diablo on the Switch and things like that. It's like being able to play anything like that on kind of like a little handheld on the bus. To be able to play Gloomhaven on the Switch, I think it's interesting because it's probably going to introduce a whole level of people who are going to go, well, where did this come from? And it's going to be, it came from a board game? That's a kind of a strange, and that'll kind of lead them the side. But then again, it's kind of like you're kind of approaching the thing where, if you're wanting role-playing game, Cephalofair, we've got you sorted with a Gloomhaven RPG. If you're wanting something kind of introductory to the Gloomhaven universe, you've got Jaws of the Lion. But then you've got Bugs and Buttons, which sideswiped me, and I wasn't expecting it, because I looked at the campaign and I was kind of like, okay, it's big, there's all the minis, so this is completionist kind of stuff, and then you announce kind of Bugs and Buttons. So was that kind of like a special surprise? Was that kind of like something you went, we need to give something to...
Oh, we knew about that day one. Like that had been the timing on that dropping was very planned.
Yeah, I'm sure
right?
It was.
And it provide every campaign has a drop.
Yeah.
Right? Because it has that thing.
Yeah.
So how do you find tools? How do you find ways to beat that? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the advantages of the way we've ran this campaign with the drops and the releases and everything there, we've been able to sort of, work to not have to deal with such a big drop in the middle of the campaign, because we've been able to have these almost mini launch days, right, for some of these stuff, which has been really cool. So...
And do you want to give us a little bit about kind of like what we can expect from Bugs and Buttons, or Buttons and Bugs?
Well, for Buttons and Bugs,
yeah,
Nikki Valens and Joe, I never say Joe's last name right, but like it was based off Gloomholden, which Joe had made as a fan passion project. He's known in the board game universe for making games small and solo play and compacting all of that, and being able to license that and bring it into this new brand with Buttons and Bugs is such a cool thing, right? And it makes that Gloomhaven mechanic approachable. Mm-hmm. And the solo play board game world is there, right? And like there's a two-pronged part to it, right? One is that people really want to play board games and they're buying all these games, they want to play them, which is great. At the same time, it's really interesting, I think, as publishers, we have to realize that we're providing a product that requires people to group play.
Yes.
And there is a larger audience that is like, hey, we just want to we want to play a board game like we do a book, and we just want to read it, and we just want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And being like Gloomhaven, a lot of base Gloomhaven people have solo played and done those things and done all that. So it's really cool to kind of have this compact, easy setup, easy teardown version of Gloomhaven where you have that itch and you're not mid campaign. You just want to hop in and play a couple rounds of Halo and then hop out.
Yeah.
Right? Like Buttons and Bugs will be able to kind of fit that in a way where you can like, cool, I can play one of these 6 characters and I've got a 20 campaign mission or 20 campaign missions and just pop through, do my thing. Awesome. You know, and the replayability there is going to be, well, how are you going to get through each one with different characters and do all those things? There's plenty of options we could do with that. I have no vision into anything beyond this campaign on what Stuff is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see, right?
How does it play? How does it play as a game? What's its kind of like base mechanics for people looking at kind of Buttons and Bugs at the first time? Because I've heard of Gloomhaven.
Well,
Gloomhaven is literally you could play Gloomhaven. You can play Gloomhaven on your lap. It's the kind of the pitch idea. So for Buttons and Bugs, what's the kind of the main mechanics?
So it's not as small as Gloomhaven.
Right.
You have to play it on the table, but essentially you're just playing 1 or 2 rooms. Right, like it's Gloomhaven. It's just Gloomhaven compact, right? So the AI is a little different for the monsters, but the mechanic play very very similar. So not gonna lie, I haven't played it, but because we only have it on digital. But I've watched a bunch of the digital plays for it, and it's just as Gloomhaven. So, which is cool, you know. So for people that really want to get into that, and obviously. It struck a tone. I think it's still number 1 on board game right now. Hold on, let's go check.
It was on there today as number 1. It was on there number 1. Let's go live.
It's been there since Sunday. So was it Thursday now? So
you could just imagine that Brass Birmingham at the moment is walking around, kicking chairs, pushing over people and stuff like that.
This is just on the hotness list. Not actually number one, right? It's just on the hotness list.
I know, but I mean, it's like must be like, well, I've had enough of this. I just can't be bothered kind of continually having to look at kind of like Gloomhaven all the time. I'm gonna go and look at something else. Let's look at the hotness, and it's like, it's there as well.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna look at the hotness list right now, the top 25 does have Gloomhaven, Gloomholden, Frosthaven, and Gloomhaven on it, right? So, props to Isaac for having it. Oh, and then look at that. And then we got Jaws the Lion at number 37 right here. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you make a good brand, you make a good game, you have a good audience, people want to be a part of it, right? So, and which is fun. I do have to say, it is nice. This is just on a marketing base. It is nice being able to work on games where you don't have to do as much recruitment about it, right? Like there's none of this like, oh my gosh, here's this whole new game, here's this whole new thing. This is much more about just nurturing and fostering a community that's already here, right? And so a lot of this stuff around what we've been doing is just like, hey, here's cool things, here's cool stuff, here's how you be a part of it, right? So which is nice.
Yeah, and do you prefer kind of fostering a community as opposed to being the kind of the hunter-gatherer? And the reason I ask this is because the Tabletop Games Job group kind of continues to grow, and that seems to be, it's almost a case that if you're looking for a role in the industry, go and have maybe a look at LinkedIn, but definitely check out the Tabletop Games group. Because...
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about things like that. I definitely threw a rock in a pond yesterday when I did my whole post about, hey, you shouldn't work for free at cons, right? Like it was a whole thing there, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, but the gaming industry is growing. It's good.
I saw that post. I think I saw it kind of maybe too early in the morning before the kind of the comments were there. But it's really funny because the LinkedIn, there's a kind of a LinkedIn kind of almost sphere of kind of influence where people are kind of going, interns need to get in. It's the summer, so who are you going to be working for? And it's working for free. So I think it's kind of like when you put something like, well, if people are going to be at a convention or a conference, and if you're working for a publisher, you should kind of get paid. And I can see that rubbing up against the guys that are saying, well, we're looking for somebody to work for 6 weeks for us for free so they can kind of get some experience. Whereas my view is that if you are, like, you're right, agree with you when you're saying like it's not worth a badge and a kind of sandwich and a goodie bag with some stuff in it. At the end of the day, you've actually got to be kind of paying these people.
Well, and what's interesting about that is, like, I got my start by doing that. I used to be a private press ganger,
Yeah.
right? And we would get paid with store credit, and we'd get 4 of us in a room, and we'd, work Gen Con the full time, like a regular job, running demos, doing tournaments, doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of the press gangers that were doing that were hoping to be part of the inner circle with privateers so they could get hired and do all that stuff. But everything there, and being one of the people that was able to get in the inner circle and get hired and do all that, like, it definitely helped my industry thing. But at the same time, I look back at that and I was like, man, that is so exploitive, right? And it's very different. And that's why a lot of those programs went away, was because you can look up the Emerald City Comic Con lawsuit with their volunteers and then all that kind of stuff there. And that's like a 5 years ago thing. But that essentially gave a lot of these companies pause, and they were like, okay, cool, we got to get rid of these programs because they're not legal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now what's happening, which is interesting on the Facebook side of it. LinkedIn, I got like no comments, which is fine because I don't like the community. It's not my jam.
Yeah.
They're all pro AI and pro this and that. And it's fine.
Let's not go there.
No, but on Facebook, like, what's happening is there's a good number of folk that, oh, well, for years I used to not get paid and I'd volunteer because I love the product and I love the game and I'm just fine having my room covered and my badge covered and it's all good for me. And it's like, okay, person who also works in the industry now, like, that is not what we should be doing now, because yes, that was how it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Sure. And then everyone's like, oh, well, then the company has to pay taxes, and then we're going to be avoiding doing these services things. And I'm like, look, as somebody that runs the jobs group, there's 15, 20 companies that are posting, hey, we need booth workers, we're paying, right? So it isn't like this is a backwards thinking here. People want to get good workers, and you can still be a board gamer and passionate, and I can still pay you $15 an hour for your time.
Yeah.
And you're going to work, 4-hour shifts. You're going to do 4 of those at the show. And look at that. Now you've made some money, and I've still covered your badge and maybe half your room. Right. And that is.
Yeah, I think there's an incentive as well. If I'm say demoing games and I've got copies of the games I'm demoing next to me, and I'm getting paid, I know I'm getting paid for demonstrating it, I think there's also a little bit of, well, this is kind of like a job, so I am demoing. It's not just kind of like a gentleman's agreement that we're kind of going through here. And I think it allows you then to say, right, okay, I expect you to, at least at the end of every demo, ask them if they'd like to maybe buy a game or look at buying a game, or if they've got the game, look at its expansion. I think you can kind of maybe put certain kind of maybe obligations on people if you're paying them. I think if you're not paying them, I think it becomes a kind of like a gray area.
It's a weird gray area, right? Yeah. So like it's interesting because I used to run a convention, right? And I didn't pay my friends, but also like it was all of us together putting it together, and I'd cover our rooms, cover our food, do all that.
Yeah.
But that was a different age. That was 10 years ago too. That was a different thing. And but like for work thing, for this, like, even if I'm bringing my friends out to work for Cephalofair or to work for Steamforge or to work for Forever, you're getting paid because that's how it is. People are going to show up on time. They're going to treat it like a real job. They're not going to treat it like, oh, we're hanging out on a cool vacation weekend. It's like sometimes they're more prepped than I am. Like, because I'm frazzled with work stuff, trying to make sure I can get all the demo materials ready and show up on time and doing this.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, my three buddies who I've brought out, put in a room, paid for their time, are now there at 8:30. I'm like, hey, Ross, we're here. We're ready to work. And they're in work mode. Versus when we finish at the hall at 5 p.m., go and get drinks. And then they're like, woo, what a fun day. Now let's go hang out and do whatever, go play a demo.
Yeah.
Like, and you can still enjoy that and do that. And I think what's really interesting about all of that right now is the dichotomy of people that are like, oh, well, I didn't get paid to do that. and that industry shouldn't change to do all these
Yeah.
things. I got all these perks, and
Yeah.
they covered my room. I should be thankful that happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, cool. That's like that happened to me too. But like, I also realized at the time that like I can't pay my bills in Pressganger points. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and at a certain point, if I already have all the factions, what do I
Well,
need
like,
1,000 points
Yeah.
of store credit for? I can't resell it either, because then I'm going to feel awkward about that if I spend the points to get product and then go resell it. Like I'm not a store,
Yeah.
so it's just a weird thing. But like most major companies are paying now. Asmodee, Renegade, Steam Forged, Hasbro, Pokemon. They're doing these things where if you're working for them, you're getting paid for the stuff. Obviously, there are differences when it comes to like doing a retailer event or an organized play thing you've put together,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
all of that.
yeah.
So like, and then there's also a difference between, hey, I have a 10x10 booth, and I'm bringing my buddies to come hang out with me at a local show, and we're just going to do some stuff there. Like I feel like it's common sense that, but I still got to say it because I'm like, oh, this. But it's like if I'm bringing out 20 people to work my Gen Con booth, and I'm expecting them to show up at 8:30 to work 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. to run demos. They're going to get a lunch break. They're going to get food. They're going to do these things. That's a shift for work.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to have to deal with all the Gen Con attendees. They're going to be running demos. They're going to be selling product essentially.
Yeah.
Like, sure, they aren't manning the register, but they're still on my booth floor in my sales space doing stuff, or they're at a table DMing, doing a thing. And right now, here I am, like I'm like a weird like socialist, like we need to pay people thing, power to the labor, but it's just like
you look at WGA at the moment, and it's all about pay and workers' rights and stuff like that. And
I mean, I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, Ross, like, what's your work plan?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm contract right now, right? And my last 2 jobs have been contract, So like for me, they're like, "Oh, you've jumped around a lot," and I'm like, "Well, not really. I've jumped around because that's the job that I've been doing. They like Steamforged brought me on for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
That was the contract that I signed.
Yeah.
Right. They had the option to re-up, and we just decided not to.
Yeah.
Right. Like with Steamforged, I've signed a 12-month contract from January to January.
Yeah.
Right. And so come December, we'll talk and see what's up. Right. And if they decide that, hey, that was really cool, thanks for doing the campaign. Now that we don't have that much to manage, we're just going to go back. And if that's the case, baller. Right. Like, for me, I got paid, and I ran one of the biggest, most eyes on camp, even if it didn't raise $14 million or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still, everybody saw it. Everybody's looking at it going, what was that? Right. And I'll be able to talk about like the craziness that was these things, but I still got paid for my time and all that contracts up there. So it's just interesting, right? Because I think a lot of the talk that is going to be evolving around paying people for their time, a lot of that has bias from people that, oh, well, when I was doing it, this is how we did it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite things. Is if somebody says that when they were younger, when they were your age, and they only volunteered, didn't get paid, and stood on their feet for 11 hours, and they turned out okay. The truth is, no, you actually didn't turn out okay. If you think it's somebody else,
the fact that you're like that. Yeah, the fact that you have to defend it with such like ferocity, like it was just I ran demos backwards in the snow and it was all good, and we had 8 of us in a room, but it was great.
I had to carve my minis with my teeth, and you didn't even have these kind of things. But the other thing is as well, and the other important thing is, if I advertise for, say I'm advertising for Jaws of the Lion demonstrators, okay? We're going to play the first 2 scenarios, or the first scenario and 2 scenarios. I'm going to get you set up. I'm going to show you how to play it. If you say that's a non-paying position, then you're relying on passionate people who love Jaws of the Lion to do it. If you say it's a paid position, then what you actually end up getting is you get people who are demonstrators applying for the job, who have done that. And there's a big difference between, and that's what I say, if you're looking for somebody we're looking for an intern who knows about marketing, and we're, whatever company, then you're looking for somebody who's passionate about the company. But if you say, right, we're going to pay you $20 an hour Then you're looking for a marketer, and you'll actually get somebody who says, look, I've got a year's experience in this or 2 years experience. I can kind of come in and kind of help you, which is pretty cool. One of the things that was a bit of a turn was the move from Kickstarter to BackerKit. So how have you found that with you, obviously, with you knowing your way around Kickstarter? Have the tools, how's the tool set changed? Has it been an awful lot different? Has it been more helpful, or is it like comparing kind of apples and seahorses? You know, they're completely different kind of systems.
It's interesting, right? Because Kickstarter, people are very trained on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Right? Like they know that they see the post, they're on their phone,
Yeah.
they see the post, they click it, they see what they want, they pick the pledge, they click yes, I understand it's not a store, and they're done. Right? It's like 3-4 clicks, you're out, everybody knows what to look for, and they make it happen. BackerKit does not have the years on them,
Yeah.
on the front facing end.
Yeah.
Right? Like they have primarily been a pledge manager system. I think one of the best pledge manager systems. And they're very good at managing people's pledges and taking them on a marketplace run to help them through everything there. And so when Isaac was working with BackerKit to make this campaign happen, there was a lot of discussion about, hey, what can we do to not make this Kickstarter 1.5, right? And not make this 2.0, right? Because we don't just want to have it be pull up, do a thing, do all that. And that wasn't going to happen anyway, because we were going to have like 3 products at launch and then with a 4th coming halfway through. So you can't just, like on Kickstarter, adding any kind of add-on or stretch goal or whatever, you have to go and modify your pledge and do your amount.
Yeah.
And then you forget about what you've added. So then when the campaign's actually over, then you got to go back in and go, okay, cool, I've pledged for X amount. Now I got to go and re-add what I want. That impulse moment is there, and a lot of those things change. Right. That being said, once the pledge manager opens, then it's like a free game again. And then you're like, oh, cool. Now anybody can hop in and do all those things. No. But with this, we have the ability to have that moment happen right away.
Yeah.
Right. And so BackerKit was very responsive, very excited, very, passionate about how can we make this a really good experience. And, I wonder what I would have loved to be a fly on their wall after Isaac told them, hey, we're going to do 3 products on launch. I don't know if that was what they were ready for. But it's interesting because I think we've been able to adjust pretty well on that. And if anything, it's been a really cool use of their system, because I don't think any other crowdfunding platform would have been able to handle the festival the way that we've been doing it. Right. Because we've got so many different things you can add on and do that. That being said, it's been really interesting to see the path that people have gone on to pledge. And I think the initial launch with the page going down initially, because it was just so many people. And then there were a few days of like, what is this thing? Right. And there was a lot of like, I don't know what to back. What do I do? Everything there. And I think part of that was, first off, they were games people hadn't seen before really. So it was like, what even is the second edition? What's in the role-playing game? So there was that shock. But then it was also, how do I navigate this thing? Right? Like it was just, there was so much to absorb and do that. And people are so used to seeing the one game, seeing components, seeing the reviews, seeing some stuff and having a good idea about it. But this page was, hey, welcome to this 30 days of stuff you're going to go on. We're going to drip feed a lot of these things. We've got videos going on. The page is a long scroll. We're going to do this stuff. There's clicking through and everything there. And we were doing and still are doing updates to the page almost every day, just to help with that navigation and that experience and everything there. So if somebody was to go on the page now versus if they hadn't seen the page since launch day, it's a new page. Right, a lot of the graphic view is the same and everything there, but now we have a lot of these like guides on like, hey, do you want this? Do you want this? Oh, are you a role play gamer? Or are you doing? And so like that helped because it's that, right? And so it's BackerKit's been very helpful. They've got stuff people aren't used to. there. It's not like in the chat section. It's not one giant
Yeah.
thing there. So there's threads and all of that, which is, it has advantages and disadvantages, right? Like, but the discussions parts are cool. You can pull away each of those and make it its own HTML, which is super helpful. You can do those things there, which is great. But we've had to do, updates with them that are, it's just neat. So yeah.
And did you audition kind of other places, or was it a case of, well, this has to be the one? Because I think I'm seeing that Kickstarter seemed to be in a kind of a little bit of a backpedaling phase. They're kind of very quietly going, oh, you know how we talked about blockchain? Yeah, well, I was really drunk and I maybe said some things I shouldn't have and put out a statement about it, but I'm really sorry about it. And do you think they weren't? I don't think they were ready for the kind of the backlash. I think they were expecting everybody to kind of jump on it and go, that's kind of cool. So they seem to be kind of backpedaling at the moment. And do you think that's maybe being caused by people like Cephalofair going, we're going somewhere else?
I don't know. I think that everybody saw the money that was being made with Bitcoin and blockchain and everything there, and they saw the hype around it, and they go, how do we be a part of this?
Yeah.
And I don't think Kickstarter had thought that through. And I don't think they were aware of the main audience that uses their platform.
Yeah.
Right? I think there is a disconnect between big tech and the users, just in general. Right? And I think they didn't realize that a lot of their indie people and board game people don't like blockchain and don't like this, right? So,
we're literally playing games with cardboard and standees and miniatures. Could you hello Luddites? Would you like to be going to the third level of new technology? And they're like going, no.
Well, and it wasn't even that. It was just like, I'm down to hear what you want to do with it.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
Right? And I don't think that ever got explained.
No.
And they ended up going through a new CEO and all these things and all that. And I look forward to seeing what Kickstarter does, because Kickstarter is a leading platform in our industry.
Yeah.
They direct a lot of business. I'm sure a third of the publishers that are going to be on the floor at Gen Con this year are there because of Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, there's a lot of that stuff that happens. And so they need to be able to take care of the audience they have created. And it looks like they're going to go that way, and it's just tough because Kickstarter, I'm sure there were investors that were like, yo, we got to get in this blockchain thing. And then they just figured it out. So I don't know. I have a lot of friends right now that are working with blockchain board games and RPGs and shit like that. And they don't even know what it's going to do, right? But for a lot of them, they're getting to play around with this technology and see what it does. And, it's on the same boat with like a virtual tabletop and all the AR, augmented reality thing. People keep trying, and maybe something will stick. Like right now, there's a new Batman game out that has like an AR thing where you're playing through a movie and the pieces have cards that have little holographic things on the table, and it makes for like an AR experience thing. And it's like, cool, we'll see how that goes, so it's neat. But like in, D&D's working on their next VTT with like 3D print things and this and all of that and everything there. So there's definitely a lot of stuff happening in the industry right now.
Yeah.
That is pushing stuff forward. But is blockchain and, Bitcoin and all of that stuff going to be part of it? Maybe eventually, but I don't think anybody has a firm idea of what that actually means right now. Yeah. And then with a lot of that being unregulated and then a lot of that stuff being caught for scam and fraud, like where a lot of us were like, yo, like we already put enough risk as is with crowdfunding. Why would I want to put another layer of uncertainty with someone else's company that has no idea who I am?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it is like the entrepreneur that goes into the Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, as it's known in the UK, and says, this is for when you have white shoes and you wear them out in the mud and you need to protect your white shoes. And it's like, okay, but I don't have white shoes. You're kind of you're created a solution for a problem that kind of doesn't exist unless like 4 or 5 completely ambiguous things kind of happen all at exactly the same time, which is the way I kind of view blockchain. I've yet to see anybody come up to me and say, it's good and this is the reason why it's good. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, you just don't understand it, therefore you're stupid, kind of thing. And it's like, well, that's not exactly a way to kind of sell the product. One thing I have noticed, Mr. Thompson, is that there has been things at, like, say, Comic Cons and stuff like that, panels and stuff, where they're having to make sure that they reduce the font on somebody's name so his entire name can fit in the little announcement thing. Just so you can fit, because I noticed you've started to appear kind of doing kind of talks at like panels and stuff like that. So how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, man, yeah. So like the campaign ends on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Comic-Con starts Wednesday. Right? My programming for Comic-Con starts Thursday.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have like 2 or 3 days, and then I leave for Gen Con. So at the beginning of the podcast, when I said I'm in the shit, I mean, like, here we go. Right. So it is always fun working with Comic-Con. I've worked with them on a big handful of stuff. I normally do panels at WonderCon and Comic-Con and stuff like that, which is great. And it's fun to be able to bring more tabletop programming and do everything there. Comic-Con has had games at it forever.
Yeah.
Their games division runs all these things and knows this stuff. I got into tabletop gaming on a professional level because of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I got my first demo of War Machine at Comic-Con when Privateer Press used to go, and then ended up working for them, 4 years later,
Yeah.
right? So I'm very thankful for that. And so what's been neat is being able to do more of this stuff. So I used to run my own convention in San Diego called Kingdom Con. I did that for years. And then when that ended, Comic-Con was like, hey, you've got free time now, apparently. Do you want to do some stuff with us? And so we actually ended up running an event during quarantine called D4, which is its own like tabletop online thing. We did like 30 panels, discussion stuff, all through their resources online, which was super cool. And then essentially they're like, oh, cool, Comic-Con's keeping going. So we kept doing panels and stuff like that. I've coordinated 5 panels. I'm moderating 3 of them. And then I've got another buddy of mine who's moderating a couple of them as well, which is super great. And then last year and now this year, I've been the coordinator for the RPG Play Theater, which Comic-Con's given us a ballroom at the Omni Theater right across, or Omni Hotel right across the street. And we do live plays for RPGs. It's a big thing. We're seeing a lot more of that now. Obviously, Critical Role was a big thing with that. Yeah. Adventure Zone, Penny Arcade, Acquisitions Inc. All these guys are all doing really cool stuff. And so it's like, cool, let's start getting that going. And so I essentially, like last year, reached out to a bunch of different publishers, and we had some really cool folk do that, like Wizards of the Coast and Hunters Entertainment and stuff like that. So this year we kept that going. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we've got 3 games each, with Marvel and Paizo and Catalyst and Modiphius and Beetle and Grimm's and Hunters Entertainment and all these people like that doing different things. And so they're bringing in celebrities and actors and tabletop personalities and all these folk to run games and do that and provide more offering for Comic-Con, which is cool. And even outside of what I'm doing, like there's a whole designers room where people can pitch games and do stuff there. There's a lot more panels that people are putting together. We're talking about D&D and game design and pitching and everything there. So like, while I definitely have like a voice to promote what I'm doing and with the people that I'm doing, there's a lot going on at Comic-Con now, which is great because tabletop is becoming much more mainstream.
Yes.
And gaming has always been there. So it's not like it's not a comeback. We've been here for years kind of thing, right? Like, so it's one of those things that's neat, but they need folk to help do that because Comic-Con is just going to do whatever Comic-Con does. You've got to bring opportunities to them and then they'll figure out, do you want to do this or not? Yeah. And then another cool thing that I do that I'm not promoting on my main page because everybody and their mom will want to go is I'm also running a tabletop game uh, industry gathering at Comic-Con. And I've been doing that the last couple of years. So I've booked out a brewery, like, you know, essentially like down the road from Comic-Con. It's like a 5-minute Uber.
Is this to ultimately answer that question whether or not you can organise a piss up in a brewery?
Well, they have they had non-alcoholic drinks too, so it's okay.
All right, yeah. But I hear that kind of that's phrasy because I couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery. It's like, well, I'm going to just prove to you I can, so I got to put it on your CV. Is this it? And speaking of CV, is this all the stuff that you're doing? Because you don't seem to be. Yes, you're focused on what you're doing at Cephalofair just now, but you still seem to have your fingers in multiple kind of pies.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably say like my industry work-life balance is really bad, right? Like so yeah, all the Comic-Con stuff, I just do it. Like, there's no payment, there's no any of that. It's just fun to make happen, right? So, which is cool. So,
are you starting to get kind of offers? Do you have kind of like, we got to catch up for a drink, Ross? Come on, I'll see. And you get like people who like you'd pass in the corridor and you go, "Hi, remember? We're cousins." And now they're kind of like, yeah, come on, let's grab 5 minutes and a coffee and let's talk about what you're doing and where you're going.
All the time. And it's happened a lot more in the, like, this year has been a lot of that. Like, I think I've always had a little bit of, hey, what are you doing? How can we help out? And there. But this year is definitely revved up. And I feel really bad because like right now I've got like literally like 4 messages that came over last night. That are like, hey, we're going to be at Comic-Con Gen Con. We just want to talk and catch up. And I'm like, my brain space is literally like not there, you know, because it's like, someone was like, oh, can we, like, I feel bad because like I haven't even done my normal Gen Con marketing blasts and stuff like that. Because it's just like, I've been doing the campaign.
But I'm guessing, I'm guessing Cephalofair is going to be there. I mean, Cephalofair is going to be at Gen Con, but
Cephalofair is going to be at Comic-Con too.
But so do you need to, have you reached, are you at the point where you're kind of like, and don't take this the wrong way, but are you at the point where you're kind of like the Pepsi and Coca-Cola kind of levels, where you're kind of like, we're continually having to remind people that we exist, that we're in the forefront. Yes, we're in the hotness. Yes, we're at the, the top 10 of BGG. However, we just need to continually kind of nudge you just to remind you that we're there and we're available, and it's kind of...
Never.
Right.
Mattel still promotes Uno.
Yes, I know that, yeah. Which is I'm wondering, I guess you're still kind of going out there, so I guess
you always got to go it. There are so many people that are playing games and discovering games for the first time that want to do things that you can never ever get lazy and rest on your laurels, because like, look at Warhammer, look at Games Workshop, right? Like 10th edition, man, like they are promoting like mad, and you're like, oh, everybody plays Warhammer. Why are they promoting? And I'm like, I've been getting messages from people that are like, oh, hey, I bought this Leviathan box thing. Like, I want to get into Warhammer. Can we play? And I'm like, look at that. Right. And it's because it's approachable. It's fun. It looks neat. Yeah. Right. And if they were just like, oh, we're Warhammer, we'll just do the normal, maybe they wouldn't be as big as they are. Right. And like D&D's in a similar boat. They're like, so you're never get lazy, right? But at the same time, you don't have to blast everything. There is like a nice retention recruitment kind of vibe you can hit, but you'd always be hustling, right? Like, but in a way that makes sense. So I think for Gloomhaven, obviously, people are going to come by the camp. People are going to come by the booth at Gen Con, and they're going to go, oh my gosh. And we're going to have demos of the RPG and of Buttons and Bugs and of second edition show off. Like they're all going to be there. They're going to come see it. I think it's more of a, when I say that I haven't been prepped, it's more of a me thing, right? Like I like being at Gen Con with
Yeah.
meetings lined up and all these things and all of that, but I literally just haven't had the bandwidth to do it, you know, like, and it's just funny because it's like normally I'd be like, let's do it. But right now, like we still have 6 days to go for the campaign and I'm still getting the stuff coordinated there and doing all of that. And the last 3 days of that's going to be intense. And so it's just timing, you know, it's just funny how that all works out. So,
will you be able to take like half a day out to crash and just kind of, because are you approaching the level where you're kind of like, I don't need any more coffee because I
mean, that was this morning. I woke up and I was like, I fought an armor I was at the, this is a dumb story you're going to get. I've been in this chair working on this straight for months. Yeah. Right. And in the last week, I was like, I need to be more social. So like I went to a house party like last Saturday and like I went to hang out with some friends at the mall and saw a movie, which was great. And then I was at a bar last night after fighter practice and I don't drink, but they have NA beers, right? Yeah. So I'm hanging out with some friends and one of my like high school friends was there and I haven't seen her for years. And she like sat down and like started talking to me for a little bit. And I realized I didn't have anything to say that wasn't working. And she's like, cool, it's going to catch up later. And I'm like, man, I really like, and I normally have like, I think I'm charming, right? And I can say all these things and that kind of stuff. But also like, it was like 11:30 and I just finished fighter practice and it was like a long thing. And and I was just like, this morning I woke up and I was like, how did that conversation end? Did she just get up and leave, or did I? Because like I was, but like, and I was paying the bill to leave because my buddy had just left. I was paying the bill and she came up, and so like I think in my mind I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get a burrito and leave, and then she sits down, and I was like, oh my gosh, hey, it's so good to see you, and I'm just like, my brain was like, pay receipt, get in car, get burrito, go home. Like I don't think I ever had that like, oh hey, talk to pretty girl and tell her how your life is going. And I think I did. And I was just like, oh yeah, I've been working on this game thing. And then I've got 2 more game things for the next month. You know, that isn't like hey, let's go hang out on a date next week. It was just funny. Like, I'm not even mad at myself for it. I'm just like, how, like, where's the break going to happen? Right. And so in my life, I got a condo, I'll be moving into in September. So that'd be really cool. And then I think I'll be able to kind of like get my life back and plugged in a little bit. I think I've been at least like to a point where I'm not, living in, like my bedroom, and doing my stuff and have my stuff in storage and everything there. I'll be able to be like, great, let's now take all these things I've had in storage and make my own space and do my own things and then figure out, how to take care of myself better.
Did you check how many things she pledged for?
She's not a gamer, but it's funny because she did bring up like a gamer thing, right? And she was like, "Oh, Ross, whenever I see you, I think of Warhammer. My best friend Nick plays Warhammer, and the whole thing there." And I'm just like, "How funny? How funny is that?" So, I mean, it's whatever. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, for a while, I used to joke that I was kind of like Doctor Who, because I would only appear at like moments in time, like events or something, right? Like I would never just be there to play Super Smash. Yeah. It's always like, oh, there's a thing happening. I'm at an event. I'm at a thing, So it's just
So campaign finishes. We'll make sure we put links into the show notes, so we've got kind of like notes to show. What kind of game would you like to be involved in next? What kind of genre? Because you've done big. You've done Steamforge and Elden Ring, and now you're doing Cephalofair. So if I was like, I don't know, the semi-god of opportunity or the demigod of opportunity and said, right, okay, I'm going to just let you, the campaign is going to be a success, regardless of the platform or the genre of the type of game. But what you get to do is you get to run a campaign for a particular type of game, regardless of the type of game. What kind of game would you like to run a campaign for?
So for me, it's not about the game. Mm-hmm. It's about the brand, it's about the people behind the game, and it's about the community.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, the game's got to be good too, to some level. I don't want to be peddling crap. But I like working with people that are passionate.
Yeah.
I like working with brands that are exciting.
Yes.
I like working with companies that are going somewhere.
Yes.
Right. And for me, that's a big thing. And I think we should all want that, right? Like, we should want to be a part of things that excite us,
Yes.
that make us passionate to show up to do the thing we're paid to do, and then working with people that we care about and that have similar beliefs as us, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I do interviews and when I do stuff like that, it's also like, hey, what are you guys looking for as a company? Like, where do you see this going, kind of thing? Having worked at the range of places I have and the games that I've done, I think this is silly, but like, I'd like to work at a company that could pay my health insurance. And then I'd like to work at a company where I can be part of a team that is like on a marketing team,
Yeah.
where we're all doing that. COVID totally screwed the office environment, right?
Yeah.
And I think for a while, and now, like, we've all been working from home, doing those things. No one's really going back to the office unless you have to. And I don't miss the office environment, but I do miss a marketing team where I'm not the only one putting in the ideas for it. And obviously with Step Affair, Isaac and Price and everybody else, they had their thoughts and everything there,
Yeah.
all of that. So like, it's not like it was just me coming up with the stuff, but I like working with teams and collaborating and doing all of that stuff. I don't like when it's just the Ross show, right? And doing all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to be able to collaborate and do all that. So I know it's a different answer than what you were doing. That being said, like, I love miniatures. I love role-playing games, all that kind of stuff, right? So obviously, if I can work on a game that's, lots of cool miniatures or really cool storytelling stuff and cool mechanics, I'll take it. But I think we're also at a point where you don't got to throw a rock too far to get that. There are a lot of companies that are doing that, and a lot of companies that need people that are experienced promoting those sort of things.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So it's just kind of cool to see what we'll see, right? Like, I'm always, I don't say I'm always looking, because that's not the right phrase, but I'm always excited to see what the next adventure is.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, if I get re-upped again, awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And then we'll do the pledge manager and get that all fleshed out.
Yeah.
And over the next 2 years, work on promoting everything going on, because this campaign has 5 windows of shipping. So it's going to be 5 waves of getting it all out and doing everything there. And that's going to be a whole journey in itself, right? On top of Frosthaven going into retail, on top of, Jaws of the Lion and everything else they got going on. So like that, awesome, right? But also at the same time, if not, then who knows? Like, even if I was to find myself at a company that cranks out games every month, right, and does all those things, I don't mind that, because as long as I'm working with people that are cool and the company is, caring about the community and the people that they support.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm kind of. Do you know who's exciting me at the moment?
Who's that?
Funko and Prospero Hall.
Oh,
I've been playing.
They've got a lot of really cool
playing
stuff.
A few of them games recently, and I was like, damn, because I played Pan Am, and I was like,
Pan Am's great,
what?
Isn't it?
And then,
yeah.
and then I was playing, and then I played the Indiana Jones Sands of Adventure, the real time, and I was like, okay, I see where we're going with this. And then I've got Big Boss as well, which is the Wolfgang Kramer old game, and I'm just like going, you guys are. I've seen they've got this new Star Wars. I think it's Star Wars Rivals or something like that that's coming out as well.
Right.
But it's the Prospero Hall kind of team, and I'm kind of like, I'd like to. I spoke to was it Fortessa Elise ages and ages ago.
Yeah, Fortessa, and she's now at Pokemon.
And do you know what? That makes me so happy to know that she's working at
yeah.
Pokemon because, you know,
As a game designer for the
that
card
is
game,
so
right?
amazing. I'm so,
Oh, it's gonna
so
be great for
excited
her.
because that's gonna it's gonna
totally.
be good for Pokemon as well because she knew her stuff. She knew what she was doing, so that was excellent.
They're totally.
So it's brilliant.
Yeah, but I mean, like the whole Prospero Hall team, those guys, they've got a really good team, and they are the amount of games they're able to put out that are cool is very exciting, right? So yeah, they're going to be at Comic-Con, they're going to be at Gen Con. They're going to have a whole promotion thing. I just helped them line up some stuff for
Of
some
course you
people. With San Diego, I'm local, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey Ross, do you have a small army we can tap into to do a thing? It's like,
Yeah.
yes, right. So
There you go.
which is fun. But yeah, I mean, it's Funko's doing cool stuff. It's gonna be neat. We'll see. There's so many companies that are doing neat things, right? So it's kind of like it's just figuring out what's going to be next.
Exactly.
You know? So
Exactly. Right. I'm going to draw a line under this conversation, Mr. Thompson, because I
It is an hour,
believe we
look at
have
that,
had
right?
you know, I mean, I was like thinking, you know, how did we talk? We talked last time for over an hour. How do we manage to get talking for over an hour again? And there we go. You know, and I know you're a busy man and you got stuff to do and things like that. So I'm going to say just a couple of things. Thank you very, very much for guesting on the show. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate you and your insight into the industry. And it's nice that we talked to the stuff on the side, which I really, really enjoyed. I'll make sure that all the links for the Gloomhaven Festival go into the show notes. And there's only 2 more things to do. We know Ross isn't a wizard, he said last time. It's all good. But it's a time for him to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Ross.
thank you so much for having me on and dealing with the scheduling. I know we had a couple of hiccups on that, getting that going, but I'm very glad to come. It's always great to talk and do all these things, which is great. If you want to find me,
Yes,
Almost Kirk on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as Ross Thompson. I'm on Facebook as Ross Thompson. Currently, for Games, we are running the Gloomhaven Grand Festival on BackerKit, which will be live for 6 more days as of when this was filmed and recorded. But then, of course, the Pledge Manager will be open a little bit after, and that you'll be able to pledge for each wave as it comes up on shipping. So don't feel like you've missed out. You still have plenty of opportunity to do all that.
Time.
And if you go on our YouTube for Fair Games, you can see all the cool stuff we've been doing with gameplays and interviews and everything there. And it's just gonna be neat. So it's always fun to work on this stuff, and I'm glad that I can come on and talk about it.
Awesome. And it's a goodbye from me.
Yeah, everybody have a good rest of your day and play some games, right? So
okay. And 3, 2, 1, say goodbye. 3, 2, 1, goodbye.
Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.